Hi, everybody, and welcome to our Tag Digital session on geofencing. So, geofencing has been a really hot topic amongst all of our event organizer clients, and we wanted just to do a kind of short presentation, about 20 minutes or so, talking about all of the ways that you can use geofencing to have a really successful campaign. So as a reminder, the session today is pre-recorded and, sorry, it's not, it's live, but it's recorded and it'll be available on demand. So anybody that you want to share this with afterwards or watch it in your own time, it will absolutely be there for you. And also if anyone's got questions, if you just pop it in the chat whilst I'm presenting, and the lovely Steph is moderating today. So she will make sure that we get everything answered. And if we run out of time, we will be sure to answer at the end. Great. So let's get started with geofencing. So today we wanted to think about all of the different points about geofencing and to provide you 8 top tips for delivering an amazing geofencing campaign. So to get started, what is geofencing? Geofencing is a way that you can target people in different radiuses or using polygons. It creates a virtual geofence, and when somebody enters that geofence, they can then get access to different apps that you might want to showcase, to different ads. You can incite different user behaviors. So you can showcase different ads for, say, your own show or for a competitor show. You can access the users in each one of those geolocations. So we're coming at it from the point of view of event organizers who are looking to target different people who are attending their own events or attending competitor events. But also you can think about geofencing in lots of different ways. So retailers use it for in-store promotions, or we have, London City Airport. When you arrive there, you get your app and it shows you how to access the public transport even faster. So let's get started and get on to our top tips. So first of all, think about what your objective is. So as I mentioned, geofencing can be used for lots of different objectives. And typically people are coming at geofencing in the events world from either a digital sponsorship point of view. So they're thinking, okay, we've got all of these people attending our shows, they're relevant to our exhibitor and our sponsor audiences, and we want to offer that out as digital sponsorship. And so that's one way that you can do it. The other way is thinking about competitor shows. So there'll be lots of different live events happening throughout the year that you think we're interested in the audience for those live events. It might be a sister event to something that you're running. It might be related in somehow, or it might be a direct competitor. So think about, first of all, and you can do both of those things at the same time. They don't have to be exclusive, but think about both of those at the same time. And then when you've decided, okay, what is my kind of overarching objective, then you can think about how are you going to meet the objectives of your overall campaigns. So one of the things you might want to do is to reach new visitors. So you know that you've got all of these people who are attending an event and you need to reach a new audience. You might be looking to reach new exhibitors. So also at the event, there's going to be exhibitors who are there and you might want to showcase what you're doing. You might want to reach competitor traffic, which would be another objective. And also you are keen to sell digital sponsorship. So I'd say this is a kind of newer format of advertising, and thinking about, during the pandemic, we've all had to look at different revenue streams, and this is kind of complementary to audience extension. So typically when you're maybe selling booth space or you're kind of selling sponsored parts of the show, you can now extend that to your digital campaign. So you can say, yep, that's great, you've got your booth and you're sponsoring the drinks reception, but also let's reach all of those users on their devices the whole time they're at the show. And you can also do retargeting after the show as well. So lots of different ways that you can use geofencing, and we'll talk about how to make those campaigns a success. So the second tip is pick your channels. So decide on the channels that you want to geofence and decide on the media that you're going to use to do both of those. So some of the channels that you might be thinking about We do a lot of geofencing on either the Google Display Network or the programmatic network, which is part of Google, which is called DV360, and Facebook/Instagram. So both of those use radius targeting, and radius targeting is where you pinpoint a location. So you might pick Dubai World Trade Center, and then you will extend that out by, say, I think that the smallest radius is half a mile all the way up to a mile. Now, the risk that you've got with those is it could be a little bit too broad because you're going to pick up everything within a mile radius. So then you can add layered targeting to that. So you're saying, yep, we want to target everybody in a mile radius, but they must also be a fashion buyer, for instance. There's then about probably 30 or 40 geofencing platforms on the market. And some of the ones that we like are Ground Truth, Semcast, Fluid Ads, and Foursquare. Now, they all work a little bit differently to radius targeting in that you've got to create a polygon, and within the polygon, then it means that it's a kind of smaller, more niche type of geofence. As soon as that user enters the geofence, they're going to get served with your ads or your notifications to use within an app. So they work slightly differently. You've got radius targeting, and then you've got polygonal targeting as well. Next, moving on and thinking about your audience behaviour. So when you're doing geofencing, these are short, sharp campaigns. They're maybe only over a couple of days, and they are targeting people who are visiting an event. So think about how your audience is going to behave actually at a show. They are going to be busy, most likely. So they're going to be looking at, a packed schedule of networking, of speaker sessions, catching up with industry colleagues. So they're not going to be on their phones or their laptops in the same way that they would, in a day at the office or a day working from home. So you want to be thinking about how busy they're going to be. What's going to take them a really short time to engage with? What type of mood are they going to be in, and what apps will they be using? Also thinking about for audience behaviour and for geofencing, when you're measuring what success looks like, it's typically not going to be things like watching a 2-minute video or submitting a whole bunch of leads or going through a registration process. It's top of the funnel, brand awareness type targeting. So success will be measured in number of impressions, click-through rate, maybe traffic to website or traffic to a certain page, but it's not going to be maybe typically the type of event campaigns that you do that are very performance heavy and you're targeting conversions. So when you're thinking about building your creative, if you're doing things like digital sponsorship, then you might want to be saying to your exhibitors, come and see, you might want to be saying to the audience, come and see exhibitor at this booth. We have a demo happening, we have a happy hour happening, whatever it is that you can encourage that type of behaviour in real time. And similarly, if you're targeting a competitor show, then you want to think about what types of content will the user actually engage with when they're on site and kind of in that really busy environment. So a really nice example from a client that we ran some geofencing campaigns for. They were wanting to get exposure and build new leads for their show, Prime Expo in Dubai. So something that they did that worked really well and actually did get them leads on the back of this was to run an ad campaign to say win a free exhibitor stand. So these were using native lead gen forms within Facebook and Instagram. It meant that whilst the user was on site, they could really easily enter the competition. They built a bunch of leads. And keep in mind, anyone that interacts with any of your ads on social or any of your website pages on programmatic, you've captured that user in the sense that you've got them as a cookie now sitting within your database. So whether they submit the lead or whether they engage with the ad, it's still money well spent. You've still been able to capture that user, and you'll be able to use that in the future for retargeting. Number 4, moving on to understanding the pricing. So the pricing of geofencing works a little bit differently, maybe to cost per click or cost per acquisition type pricing that you might be used to. When you are running your ads, think about you're being charged on a CPM basis, and all advertising can be tracked back to being charged in CPM in some way. And what that means is a cost per 1,000. It's a relatively cheap type of advertising to run. So on your radius targeting campaigns, so that's when we're looking at Google or Facebook, you're targeting everyone in a location, everyone that's recently been to a location or that lives in that location. And you might pay $1 to $2 cost per thousand. When you move to the specialist geofencing platforms, think about how busy those events are going to be and how much available inventory there might be. And what I mean by inventory is how much space is there available on any given website. Think about it as an auction for 3 days, and the highest bidder's likely going to win. So you want to be bidding high. So maybe $20 CPM is about the kind of ceiling that you'll pay. Lots of them fall maybe between $3 and $10, but keep in mind, if it's a busy event, if other people are doing the same thing, you're going to have to bid high to make sure that your ads get exposure. So if you're looking for an easy formula, just so you can get an idea of what the cost might be, if you're looking to get 100,000 impressions at a $20 CPM at the top end of the market, that's going to cost you $2,000. And the formula for that is CPM multiplied by impressions divided by 1,000 will give you your cost. When you're selling this back as digital sponsorship, CPMs are much more expensive. So similarly, some of us will have spoken about audience extension and the pricing for that. We've seen CPMs when they're being sold back to exhibitors up to $80 to $100 for that. Lots of them will fall maybe a $50 to $60 CPM, but they can go much higher. So keep that in mind. It is absolutely premium real estate. And if you're selling from a digital sponsorship point of view, you can guarantee that you're kind of locking out that polygon for your event, that users will be able just to reach that audience whilst they're actually there. So keeping both of those things in mind, and you can run both at the same time and see what your CPMs come in at. We often get asked in terms of what's a minimum budget for geofencing, and we won't do anything less than $500. So typical geofencing campaigns per event, say a budget of $500 to $2,000. Moving on to number 5, understanding limitations. So like all ad campaigns, some things work, some things don't, and there's definitely limitations with geofencing. It's a delicate balance of getting the right size of geofence. So you don't want that geofence to be too big. Like say, for instance, you end up, the ads aren't showing and you increase the radius to 2 miles. You don't want the geofence to be so big that you just get lots of irrelevant traffic. But similarly, if the geofence is too small and it's too competitive or you're not bidding high enough, the ads aren't going to show. Also keep in mind that ads often start in learning mode. So those of you who've run lots of campaigns with us before know that maybe the first week or 2 weeks, the ads are in learning mode, and it means all the machine learning's kind of getting going and seeing how that all is going to perform, and it won't always deliver the impressions. One of the other issues, you can get the creative can be disapproved, and there might be absolutely nothing wrong with the creative. It's an issue we come across every single day. Creative gets disapproved for a variety of reasons. There might also not be enough available inventory within the geofence for the ads to show. So, there's other ads just taking up the inventory on all of the websites that people are visiting in that specific geofence. So how do we get around those issues? One of the things that we would advise is to get the campaign all ready, ideally a week before, set it live so that it can either be approved or disapproved, get the ads out of learning, and then just pause it again. So set it live like for a couple of minutes just to kind of get the machine learning going, then pause it, leave it sitting there, and then automate everything so that when the campaign is actually ready to go, it will just all be automated. And, some of our clients run 30 geofencing campaigns in a year. That all just has to be set up in advance and ready to go. Increasing the CPM is another option. So CPMs, as I mentioned, can be pretty cheap. If you set it higher, you've got a better chance of showing because you're kind of setting a premium bid. And be prepared to increase the radius potentially, moving that up by half a mile each time, or narrow the targeting if it's actually spending too quickly. Tip number 6, plan in advance. So as I mentioned, lots of clients have lots of events, either that they're running themselves or competitor events, or a combination of both that they want to target throughout the year. Ideally, and this is always the ideal way of doing things, there's always last minute requests that come in. For competitor events, have a calendar of events already so that your ads can be prepared in advance, so that the creative is signed off and the responsive ads are ready, ideally a week before the show. So we've got time to do that kind of on, off again approach. And if you have digital sponsorship campaigns that you're running, you're still going to have to get your exhibitors or your sponsors to sign that creative off. So make sure that that's all ready, all signed off, and again, it's ready to go. As I said, have all of the campaigns automated. So ideally, you know all of the dates and all the creative and all of the messages that you're running. Have those dates ready to be automated so that before the event, you're not remembering to switch things on and off again. It's all just sitting there, and it'll run and it'll finish 3 days, at midnight or whatever time after the event. Number 7, consider privacy. So, we are living in an age where there is more legislation coming around all types of advertising, all types of user targeting. And so privacy is definitely something to factor in when we're running geofencing campaigns. We are looking to target people's devices, their mobile devices within a geofence at any given time, unsolicited sometimes, and we want to make sure that people, as much as we believe that target audience will be interested in the content, we want to make sure that they have the option to opt out at any stage. So we've got the CCPA in California, GDPR, we've got the Apple iOS updates, which has made it more challenging for app developers and location-based advertising companies to make sure that they're accurately capturing and targeting iOS smartphones with geofencing. So really what we need to make sure that we're doing is adhering to all the requirements of the platforms and also giving users an option to opt out of any geofencing ads that they see and anything that they're also able to click. Why are they seeing that ad? And ultimately, that's all going to be in the platform, but you have to be aware about it and make sure that you can confidently explain to users that they can opt out at any time of those ads. And finally, looking for our point number 8, thinking about delivering an experience. So as we've already said, the users are in event mode, they are busy, they are kind of working through a schedule for the event and thinking about what would be a really good experience for them. So thinking through the user journey in terms of what content would be helpful to them, what content could you personalize, and what is something that they will actually engage in. So one of the examples of really strong geofencing, and this is something you can think about, especially if you're using geofencing to encourage app usage, is Sephora. So when anybody entered any Sephora store, they were entering into the polygon, they got served a notification to either download or re-engage with the app that they had downloaded. They then got a selection of offers based on their previous buying behaviour, news and content that was relevant to them. And then it also fed a huge amount of really useful, rich data back to Sephora about how the users were engaging with the app once they were in store. This is something definitely to consider when you're running app promotions or you've got an app that's going to be used at the show. So encouraging users to interact with the app, encouraging them to engage with sessions, looking at their past behavior if you've got it, encouraging them to use the networking, encouraging them to get discounts, and also serve ads at the same time. And so just to summarize our 8 top tips. Number 1, think about your objectives. Are your ads for your own shows? Is it for competitor shows, or is it a combination of both? Pick your channels. So is it going to be radius targeting or polygon targeting? And which channels are you going to use to deliver both of those? Think about your audience behavior. So what are your users doing whilst they're at the show? What kind of content are they likely to engage with, and delivering really strong creative that encourages that behavior? Understanding the pricing. So know that you're charged on a CPM basis and it's going to be different. You're not really looking for conversions. You're looking at a good CPM, and different metrics like click-through rate would be good. Understanding the limitations. So it's a really short campaign, and typically digital ads work better on a longer term campaign. So be prepared, have everything ready in advance, and understand that you might have to be prepared to change to increase your radius or to up your bid. Plan in advance. So as I said, get everything ready in advance, get all creative signed off internally or by exhibitors if you need to get them to sign it off, and automate all of your dates so that that's all ready to go. Consider privacy, so make sure that you have privacy control in place, you're handling data well, and there's options to opt out for users. And then think about what's going to be a really exciting experience. How can you get people to engage with all of your on-site content? How can you get them to engage with your advertising and put all of that effort into making sure that it's a really strong experience for your users? And then finally, thinking about what's the future of geofencing looks like. So we definitely have limitations and privacy concerns, but one thing that we'd like to do is looking at increased personalization. So one of the key advantages of all of this technology is it's allowing you to create customized ads built around your consumer's immediate circumstances. So once your consumer has crossed the virtual boundary, there's an opportunity to personalize the ad messaging. And studies have shown that 63% of consumers now are expecting personalization. And this is your chance to do it with special offers. So you can cater your message to your audiences or your competitor audiences' real-time needs with delivering discounts and promotions. And it's really valuable when it comes to providing a valuable digital marketing experience. The more that you can tailor your call to action for your consumers, the better your chances of boosting acquisition and retention while building your brand loyalty and affinity. Thank you very much for listening, and we will stop sharing and we'll move on for a couple of minutes of questions. Great, so we've got our first question from Kirsty. Will the removal of cookies affect geo-targeting in the long term? So no, geo-targeting isn't done with cookie-based advertising. It's done either through RFID or mobile device ID targeting. So it's not based on cookies. Cookies are using pieces of JavaScript to collect the user data when somebody's come to the website. So this is a way that you can actually combat the removal of cookie-based advertising, because it's about where users are and having the mobile device activated within the specific geofence at any given time. So it's a really nice complementary type of campaign that you can use as we start to see the decline in cookie-based advertising. Are there any country restrictions with geo-targeting? Yes, it depends on the data controls within that country and what type of availability you've got to build the polygon fences. So there can be different areas, specifically in Germany, there's limitations on how you can actually do your polygon advertising. With radius targeting, no, there's no restrictions with geo-targeting. You can target any country. If it's polygonal advertising and how you're capturing mobile device IDs, there's restrictions, but Germany is probably the only one that I know of that has restrictions on that. You won't be able to target. Is it possible to target a specific venue, or does it have to be a wider area? With polygonal advertising, it can be a specific venue, so you can even break that down to a hall level. So if you're thinking about a wide exhibition hall or number of halls, you could say, okay, this exhibitor is able to advertise to this hall, and this exhibitor is able to advertise to this hall. One of the restrictions you might have is the number of devices in that specific hall. You would want 5,000 to 10,000 devices moving through the hall to make sure that you've got enough to actually get the ads to trigger. So it is possible to do it, but you need to make sure that it's actually going to be busy enough. And in those circumstances, you might have to widen the area if there wasn't, and do that quite quickly if the ads weren't serving. Can you target a business district area, or does it always have to be? Yep, it can be a business district area, so you can use addressable geofencing. You can pick a number of different postcodes or zip codes, and you can, or anything really you can draw on a map, you can decide is a geofence. So there might be areas that we say, okay, that's like a real media hub, or that's a manufacturing zone in this city, in this country, and you can draw a geofence around it and then target everybody within that. You can get that down to offices. So if you know, okay, we're really targeting this office block for this reason, you know, anything, if you're targeting coffee shops or retailers or shopping malls, all of those can be used. So really anything, and making sure that you maybe don't go too broad when you're looking at a wider area. because you want to make sure that it's still relevant to your user base. Great, so thank you so much for listening. I hope that's been helpful. If anyone has any further questions, then please get in touch. We will make the whole session available on demand with the slide deck as well. So feel free to share or get in touch, and we look forward to seeing you at our next learning session. Thanks for joining.